Hello, good day everyone, and welcome again to our blog. For this time, we're just gonna discuss some things that were not told you about the POEA contract. Now, I know that the POEA contract has been around for almost decades, and it's almost the standard thing when it comes to employment contracts overseas when it comes to Filipino seafarers. It has been around for so long, like decades, that I myself don't really know exactly the origin. I know it was there already before I was born. Now, here's the thing. The Philippine Overseas Employment Administration Standard Employment Contract, or as we know commonly for short is the SEC for Filipino seafarers, has several clauses that can be seen as anti-labor or unfair, especially when analyzed from the perspective of a seafarer's rights and international labor standards like the Maritime Labour Conventions, or better known as we call it, MLC 2006. Now, what I'm going to state is the simple breakdown of the problematic or unfair clauses on our POEI contract. So there are 6 things. The first off, or the first red flag, is the company design physician rule. Now, in this clause, the employer gets to choose the doctor who will determine the seafarer's medical condition for such claims. Now, what's the issue behind this? It's kind of like this gives the company full control over the medical diagnosis because, well, after all, the doctor that they kind of assign is under their payroll. So, in other words, the employer is the one who's choosing the doctor. So that's the main explanation of that. Now, second is that even if a seafarer is clearly unfit or disabled, the company doctor can then apply the illness to reduce compensation. So in other words, the company, this is the natural reaction because of course the doctor's employers is the company, so natural they're kind of giving you a low ball when it comes to the time when you have to claim for your compensation if something bad happens. And aside from that, the seafarer often needs to fight for a second opinion at her own cost or his own cost, and that gets delayed in the arbitration or court. This is the part where you're already in the NLRC case. There's a second and third doctor opinion, but anyway, we're not gonna discuss that. That's a long discussion. We're just here to discuss some things that are fishy on the POEI contract that most people do not know. Okay, and number 2, there's also on the POEI contract, this is also one of the red flags of the POEI contract, the 120-day rule / 240-day rule. Now, on that clause from the jurisprudence tied to the contract, if you're sick or injured and you're not declared permanently disabled for 120 or 240 days, depends on the situation of course, you may not get the full disability benefits. So what seems to be the issue there? Well, the issue there is either this time there's a time limit when it becomes an excuse for early dismissal of claims, and there's also a possibility that even if you're still under treatment, the employer can say time's up, no more benefits. So in other words, if you go beyond that 120-day rule or 240-day rule, it basically says that you no longer have benefits. That's as simple as it is. So the third red flag among on the POEA contract as well is the waiver of rights, or which is the implied pressure. Now, under this clause, upon receiving final payment or settlement, the seafarer waives any other further claims. If you notice, if you're gonna say complain on this is more like supported when you're making a claim, and after you made a claim, a waiver is kind of being given to the seafarer who's claiming that. Now, what seems to be the issue on this? In practice, many seafarers are forced to sign waivers, that one that I mentioned earlier, under pressure to settle fast, even if they're still sick or the amount is much lower than they're legally entitled with. So yeah, it's more like the main purpose of this is that the agency or the POEA contract kinda lowballs the seafarer on this one. And also, one red flag that is also not noticed is that there is also an escrow system in the POEA contract. Now, the escrow here is separate from the Magna Carta escrow. Just be reminded of that. Now, this is, of course, the escrow system in arbitration outcomes. Note that Though not in the contract itself, this is enforced in practice when seafarers win in arbitration. Now, even if you win your case, so what seems to be the red flag, this is the part, even if you win your case, the award is put in an escrow account, or more like a pot money, or it is hold until all appeals are done, which can take years. And aside from that, this delays the justice and serves the employers, not the workers. So number 5, one also thing that is not stated on the POEA contract is that no clear mental health protections. This is one also of the red flag. Now on this clause, there's very little to no mention of psychological distress, harassment, or even bullying, which is kind of surprising because this typically happens a lot and is common on working environments, working on ships. So I'm kind of surprised this as well when I find out. But anyway, what seems to be the issue with this? Now, mental health is a huge concern, especially with toxic shipboard leadership. But the POA contract doesn't obligate companies to protect seafarers from these invisible rights. And last but not the least, this is the number 6 red flag of the POEA contract: overly favorable to employees in disciplinary cases. Now, there is a clause in the POEI contract that the employer has wide leeway to terminate the contract for breach of discipline or misconduct. Now, what's the issue seems to be this one. It sounds to be that it's kind of fair, but it's not. And why is it an issue? These are vague terms that can be used to fire someone unfairly or on unreasonable firing, or summary, unreasonable dismissal. Now, some cases of termination happen without fair hearing and are rubber stamped as valid. So that's the thing about the. So that's the last part of the clauses on POEA contract that you might consider what do you call this, anti-labor, or kind of in some cases contradicts the MLC 2006 Labor Convention. Now, in summary, the POEA contract, while marketed as standard, tends to favor mining agencies and ship owners in many ways, especially in medical repatriation claims and termination issues. It often lacks clear mechanisms to protect seafarers from abuse or exploitation. And before I close my blog, think about this. If the POEA contract was a standard contract, then why is it that if it was really that protective, why do so many seafarers end up fighting for basic rights like medical treatment, proper compensation, or medical health care? A contract that favors company doctors, delays payouts, and silences complaints with waivers isn't protective. It's protective of company profits. So yeah, think about that and think about it hard enough on why there's clauses like this in the POEA contract. So there we go. So thank you everyone for watching on my vlog. I would just like to enlighten you about the 6 things that the POEA contract doesn't tell you about and is considered an anti-labor practice. So if you kind of like my video, please don't hesitate to click on that like and subscribe. It will help me a lot when it comes to making these videos. So again, this is Operator 214. Everyone have a great day, and see you around next time. Say bye bye. Thank you so much.